Joining us live is Jessica Levinson, clinical professor at Loyola Law School. And Jessica, you've also taught courses about constitutional law, so thanks for being with us tonight.
Absolutely. Teaching one right now, and I think I know the hypothetical that we'll talk about Monday night, first thing.
Oh, indeed. So let's begin with what this means for current tariffs. Are they paused, and does this impact all of the president's tariff-related executive orders?
So great question. So it looks like the ruling, which again said to the president of the United States, you do not have the power under the statutes that you're pointing to impose these tariffs, gave the executive about 10 days to wind things down. Reporting that I'm just seeing over the last few moments is that the Trump administration has already appealed to the federal circuit. That's the circuit that has jurisdiction over the trade court. And at this point, I think we need to kind of pause and say the Court of Appeals here, the circuit court, has the ability to either allow this lower court opinion to go into effect, which would mean that these tariffs, that it looks like all the tariffs that are covered by this ruling would be paused, or to say that the ruling would be stayed, meaning the ruling would not be in place while the case goes through the appeals process. I think it's also important to note that at this point, it looks all but inevitable that this could go to the Supreme Court. And typically, we're looking at the last 3 to 4 weeks of the Supreme Court term, maybe not this year.
Gotcha. So this could take some time to unwind, so to speak. Now, the power to impose tariffs, according to the Constitution, is with Congress, but they've also ceded some of that power to presidents. So could and should Congress step in to address the current situation?
I love this question because, yes, number one, under the Constitution, who has the power to regulate foreign commerce? It's Congress. So Congress passed a number of different statutes. And frankly, Congress has ceded a lot of authority over not just the last few years, but the last few decades. What the court today said is, but you haven't ceded all authority, meaning that the president pointed in part to this one statute, the IEEPA, and the court said, that doesn't give you the emergency powers to impose tariffs the way you think it does or the way you're arguing it does. Now, the question of what Congress should do, it's within Congress's power to pass a different law that would give the president this power. And that's really a political decision. That's a policy decision that's up to Congress. But it's a great question because it reminds us that the court doesn't say you can never impose these tariffs. The court says there isn't a statute that gives you, the president, the power to do so the way you're trying to do it.
And as you mentioned, the Trump administration has already appealed. Ultimately, this is likely to be before the Supreme Court. How do you think the Supreme Court will play this one?
I know. I wish I had a crystal ball here. I will say only that this is a conservative court. It's a conservative court by a 6-3 margin. And in my view, under a more strict constructionist or originalist interpretation of the Constitution, I think there's a very good argument to be made that the president does not currently have the power under these existing statutes. So I think it's really important that we focus not on whether or not the justices were appointed by a Republican president, but what their ideology is. And in this case, I think a lot of them have the ideology that you need to be very careful to adhere to a statute before you as president take too much power away from the legislative branch.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a very interesting one for us to watch and for your students as well. Jessica Levinson, thank you so much for your time.